episode. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is a very special episode. We are here with Simcha's father, and happens to also be my father-in-law. I married his daughter. In case it wasn't clear.
Thank you, Levi.
So I would like to start. We have many conversations. That was, what inspired this podcast. So I want to start with a question that in a regular setting I wouldn't ask, but I guess about your childhood. If you could start from, the very beginning. At what point did you start hearing about Lubavitch?
Okay, not that my childhood is of any import, but maybe as it pertains to
The Mashiach discussion.
the Mashiach discussion and Lubavitch and such. Okay, so I guess we should start back a couple of generations back from my grandfather. His name was Rabbi Fisch, alav shalom. So he worked in 770 for Rishag from the Frierdiker Rebbe's time, I think Tafshin Zayin, till the mid-Mems. He worked on the third floor of 770. As a secretary, as a masker, I think, for Rishag. At the time when he got the job, it wasn't common to be able to type in English, Hebrew, and Yiddish, which he was able to. So I don't know the details, but apparently he got the position, and yeah, he stuck with it. His son, he had a ben Yachid, my father, alav shalom as well, who Simcha is named after. He grew up in Lubavitch. He learned in Lubavitch, and then Mesivta, Bedford, and Dean. He was there until he wanted to go to college. And a few chevra went to Dan Holo, and they very much wanted to stay. But college was a hard no. Obvious, the Rebbe's opinion is clear on that. They were trying to get dispensation. We'll go there, we'll go at night. Well, anyway, they weren't having any of it. And so they went to, so him and a few of his chaverim went to Rabbi Gusman's yeshiva. I think it was across the street from 770. Rabbi Shal Gusman, alav shalom. I think it was called Netzach Yisrael. The yeshiva was called. And there you go. You see, that's why we need to have podcasts to get the information. So they went there. And yeah, so we retained. So obviously, growing up. So I guess you would call us friends, Yedidei Lubavitch, friends of Lubavitch. So there was a very strong Lubavitch connection. When we would go to 770 or get 770, then it wasn't like that. It was, I guess, smaller, less people, Pashit. So like a lot of people knew my father. Like everyone asked him, he wasn't like we were going strangers. Like he had a lot of classmates and so people. So I grew up, I guess, always knowing that we are, like shtickle Lubavitchers. Not Lubavitchers. He was clean shaven. We didn't have necessarily Menhagei Chabad, but there was a strong feeling that Lubavitch Rebbe is the Lubavitch Rebbe. And so I grew up in Borough Park. There was in yeshiva, there was non-Lubavitchers. So when so this we're talking. I was born in Lamed Hay, so I guess in the Mems. The usual sort of conversations came up. The politics then was Tefillin and also Mashiach as well. But the usual Lubavitch stuff. And I always found myself, without any knowledge, obviously taking the Lubavitch side of things. And I believe I usually, quote unquote, won the arguments because we're correct. But I didn't really have talking points. But I was like Tefillin. Why wouldn't you put Tefillin on a year? I knew the Lubavitch Rebbe is right. I didn't know exactly. Again, I didn't have the talking points, but I knew that Lubavitch Rebbe is right. And anyone, saying that he's not is not right. And so we'll get into it. Mashiach I remember Mashiach coming up. There was a song, the Rebbe's Mashiach. They had this song. I'm not going to sing it now, but making like a song Keilu we sing, which is interesting because we are kind of singing it now. But this is like
What year was it?
This is Mem Beis, Mem Gimel, Mem Daled. Mem Hey.
The fact that Rebbe's Mashiach is not something that was invented in Batchilan and Hey. This was something that was always always there.
Correct, and no, there was something.
And everyone knew that Lubavitchers think that.
Correct, and I was actually defending it. At that point, I thought, that Mashiach was, the MBD and Kol Moshe Mashiach. I guess a malach of some sort. Whenever I learned about Mashiach, it was, sitting in Shemayim, and something like every time we do an Averu, we put another chain to the wall. And every time we do a mitzvah, a chain comes off, and when he's free, he'll be able to come, and he's waiting to redeem us. This mystical figure. I did not think then that it was a person walking
But
around.
now would say that he sits by the gates of Rome and he's on the bandages.
So on and so forth, yeah. My mind, it was somewhere in Shemayim, like there's these rooms kind of like, I guess, surrounded by clouds. You know, correct. So
all these different things put together.
Not a real person, more of a fantastic.
I did not think it's a real person. I thought like that was something like, let's make fun of Lubavitchers and let's, they think the Rebbe's so great. They think the Rebbe's Mashiach. Like, Geulah would think the Rebbe's, whatever. Some type of like desire to. Yes, I would say no, it's not true. What are we talking about? Which is interesting in retrospect.
Yeah.
So this was the member. In any case, I would always defend Lubavitch. I was kind of a little proud. Like, well, Lubavitch. I guess Ibcha Mesavra. If everyone, you always like to take the other side. I guess part of my nature also. Maybe that's where I got it. But in any case, Ibcha Mesavra. So Lubavitch. Anyway, so I was always known like a typical Lubavitcher. Unfortunately, I have very hazy memories. I believe I went with my grandfather to work and might have said, I was like 4 years old. I remember very, very hazy. Unfortunately, I can't ask him, but I do remember going to the parades and all probability, like Boim is my Chassidus Meledes. I think a lot of people actually, like Boim is Chassidus Meledes, a lot of Chavra came to the parades, and that's the first time they saw it up. There's a lot of Yidden, like Boim is it's interesting that Takar Rashbi Shabbatirenu, that like Boimer, probably, I don't know, thousands of people over the years came to the parade who wouldn't come otherwise. And that's probably the Chassidus Meledes. It's not interesting to note. The first time that I could remember would be Lag Baimer, yeah. So maybe the early parade and the early Mem, for sure, Mem Gimel, Mem Dalid. So I remember, that. Okay, that was as a kid, and we'd go from time to time. Kaish Bracha. So then around my Bar Mitzvah time, basically, which was Memches, somewhere around that time, Memches, Memtes, I guess I was getting older, and I started realizing, I guess, the Rebbe is the Rebbe. I guess it was coming clear. It should be noted that my father took me to a lot of the, a lot of the Gedolim at the time. A lot of the people we hear about now. I was, I guess, lucky enough to meet. You talk about in literature belt, Rabbi Moshe, Rabbi Yaakov, Eretz Yisrael, person I will mention, but also the Maggid. Some Orbach, Rabbi Yashiv, whatever, Vadi Yosef, whatever, the Gedolim, and others. The Rebbes I saw. The Berich Moshe, the Satmar Rebbe, the Klausenberger, I thought the Lev Simcha, the Belzer, just various, the Blusheva, the one from the that tells of the Holocaust, the famous Blusheva, the stories. Indeed. Many others. But the Rebbe was something else. The Rebbe was a different thing, and I started realizing that the Rebbe is something else. Again, we'll talk later, I guess, Mashiach, I don't remember it, but the Rebbe was like, wow. I started going more often on my own. Then Shabbosim, I wanted to go for a Shabbos. Then I started going Shabbosim at a family I went to, and that was, extremely special. And looking back at the time, a lot of people say we didn't appreciate it at the time. I seem to recall this as a young kid. Like, I did appreciate it. Like, I remember, like, when the Rebbe would, like, I'll be, like, in the Shvil, the actual Shvil, to actually see the Rebbe walk by.
Was it called the Shvil then?
I don't think it was. I don't remember the term Shvil. I don't think I heard the term Shvil till.
It wasn't as official of a thing. It was just practical that everyone went through.
It was very official. It wasn't correct. Yeah.
Saying no, but people try to stand. But people try to stand
right
on the inside.
You're right. I'm thinking that was also Chiddush. Like in the early years, people would actually hide from the Rebbe because they wanted to look at Yechazarish upon him. But then some kavutza came from either France, Eretz Yisrael, and they started, and then it became a thing where, I guess,
So the Shabbosim you would come, you would stay the whole Shabbos?
I'll stay the whole Shabbos, even at the, so I would, at the time, I said to Azus, I would try to stand in a place where I could tell the Rebbe good Shabbos. There's chance for interaction. So I would stand often by, like by the door where the Rebbe walks in. So when the Rebbe walked out, when the Rebbe walked in, I would be more in front of the shul. But I forgot how I did it. I guess I quickly, but I ended up davening. Maybe I made my way there. Sad Rebbe walked in. So Sad Rebbe was walking out of shul. I would tell, like looking at you right now. Good Shabbos. Really good Shabbos. Rebbe look at me and say good Shabbos. It was I say very special. I don't know what words to use. And I would say good vach as well. One interesting occurrence happened when Shabbos was Chai Kislev. It was Nun and Aleph. Shabbos was Chai Kislev. So Mother Shabbos was Yotas Kislev. And the Rebbe davened downstairs might have. Usually the Rebbe davened might have upstairs. In which case, I think I would often choose actually to daven in the magnet room, and then so I could say good vach to the Rebbe. I walked out, something that might have been inside. But this case, since it was Yotas Kislev, the Rebbe came downstairs, which is unusual for Ma'ariv. And when the Rebbe walked out of shul, I told the Rebbe good vach. I didn't Rebbe, and the Rebbe told me good yontif. In any case, so my point was that so when the Rebbe would walk by me, I was like, wow, I'm standing in front of the Tzaddik Hadayr, the Nasi Hadayr. Wow, like it was like each time I went quite often, but not like crazy. I didn't live there. I was I still had to go from Borough Park to get there. But each time I kind of did appreciate each time the that I get to stand that I'm in the presence of the Rebbe. Was
there anything that you learned in those times, or it was like were you learning Chassidus and like was that like something that you were doing, or is just pure Rebbe and your experiences with the Rebbe that gave you such a feeling of like wow?
So that's a great question. If you have a group of Chaverim, who also came from Borough Park and kind of came, and everyone kind of has their own different methods how they got there. Like some talk about through Chassidus, they learned Chassidus, through Rabbi and whatnot, and through Chassidus they came to. I have another friend he's very into Nagunim, so he had this big affinity for Nechayach, the good old Nechayach tapes. He would listen to the Nechayach tapes, and he really liked, and through that he got involved in Chabad, and the Rebbe got involved in the Rebbe. By me not so much. By me was pure Rebbe. Yeah, not Chassidus, not the Nagunim. So that came. So I remember actually one time I was with my father in 770, possibly with Rab Nachum Kaplan, who was from the Misrad HaChinuch of Americas now. I'm 99% sure it was Nachum Kaplan, and I even remember we were like towards the back of 770. I forgot what the occasion was. The Rebbe wasn't in shul then. We were schmoozing, and I think my father told him that I'm getting more involved. So he said, "No, it's with Chassidus, like to learn Chassidus. Chassidim is learning Chassidus." And my father also, interestingly, would if you're Lubavitch, you should learn Chassidus, like whatever. He took a look back. He said that when he was in, to his Chavedim, he felt like he should have taken it more seriously than he did. Like there was a Tanya class, and then I think he graduated to my mother. I'm not sure. I think he said, I don't know if he had a chance to graduate. He's like, I should have taken the Tanya class more seriously than I could have learned my mother. He thought I had this interesting. Yeah, I learned whatever. Right. So there was a word. If I'm a Lubavitcher, right. So becoming very much a Lubavitcher vis-a-vis the Rebbe, right. The Rebbe himself. I was.
You're becoming a Chassid of the Rebbe, not so
Chassid of the Rebbe, right? But at some point you reach a point where that can only go so far. So I started learning lessons in Tanya, which was very obviously eye-opening. Yonim there, which Taka just never. But I think at this point, I guess because of the proliferation of Chassidus and the speakers, Rabbi YY and this and that, the ideas of Chassidus are very much well known. Yeah, I think we're going back to Tafshin Nun, again, pre-internet, pre-everything. If you had to go to a shir, you had to actually find out about a shir and go there and listen. Maybe there was a tape and you had to borrow it from someone.
Couldn't listen at times too. Right,
there was no 2x, everything was 1x, correct?
Oh man, the dark ages.
Lafiyadich now, mamish. So some of the ideas of Chassidus were like wow, like things that I never heard before. Pashat, eye-opening. They obviously learn Perek Lamed Beis, or Perek involved about we learn Gemara, the fact that this is the Eibishter's. These were like wow. These are like unbelievable things that you didn't really that I haven't heard even at all before. So that was that. Rabbi gave a shift Thursday night where I sat by Yeshirim. It was kind of the thing to do. To be honest, I did not really understand it much. Again, I'm 13, 14, listening to Rabbi Yoel go on. But it was more the conversations afterward with Farbrengen, that was more, had a lot to do with my, where I ended up, where I was. Yeah, so definitely, so there was some Chassidus. Looking back now, there was also very little. There's so much available now. Even forget about online, just in book form. There was so many Sikhs in English. There was and I added up. I was like hungry for that. I'm looking back, like I missed it only by a few years. Even Hechel Menachem opened up. Like Mama, I think Mandalud and hey, like if that was around Mem Test, no, I would have been. But whatever I was able to, whatever I got hold of, I kind of did. So I had some some basic rudimentary understanding of Chassidus. The Gunim and whatnot, but definitely it was and remains the Rebbe himself, the Rebbe. Yeah.
Wow. So this is all happening in the nuns and the nalefs.
This is nun and aleph, nun and aleph and beis. I mean, yeah.
So by the time I guess Chav Ches Nissen came around, you were fairly frequently in Granites for Shabbos, or was it still every once in a while?
It was still once in a while. I would go when I was able to go. We took the Borough Park bus. Those who remember, there was a famous bus that went down Borough Park, I think down 50th Street, from 12th Avenue, went to 16th Avenue, and then went through Dale, then went to Crown Heights. So when we can, whenever I was able to, I remember any tiny sibber. So we finished 1 o'clock. So we went some assembly for the mincha, for the sikha. Whenever there was a kashal bracha, then I would go with my father. Some Sunday dollars sometimes. If we had off Sunday Hanukkah, there was no cheder. I think that was 1 day vacation we had a year. Sunday Hanukkah, so we would go. I remember going to Sam at the Rebbe's house. I remember going to davening, and so on.
So it wasn't. So you were still like in Borough Park and
Koyach Nissen, for example. I remember there was then a Crown Heights hotline. 774. I forgot the number. I don't remember the number, but there was a Crown Heights. Rabbi Blau made it a Crown Heights hotline. I remember hearing the Sikh. I said a Sikh at night. The stand was shaking and this and that. I remember listening.
How did the hotline work? It was.
Called up a number, and you had there was recording what happened, and to hear the Rebbe said a sikha, to hear the sikha, press number 1 or whatever it was.
Oh, wow.
Or to hear it in English, press number 2 to hear a translation in English. That's that was like that was a lifeline. That was like
right.
That was like wow. But it's funny we said kind of joke like the dream was to have like now at 770live.com, like that was like the dream, if there could be like a life like there could because something there was a part of Rebbe being on satellite, like imagine 24/6
right
we could have and it would wow, and as far as we ended up on come into play like 12 Davis, I guess Davis has a sense of humor or whatever. That's whatever things work out the way they work out. But so I remember hearing the sikha, I heard it a few times. Taka, the Rebbe's voice was we didn't know exactly.
Right, what was your impression? I'm saying like
something's up. Then I remember again. At that point, got a lot of the new. Funny, you mentioned the hotline. A lot of the news I got from the hotline, and again, a lot of it was through the lens of the fellow making the hotline. But looking back, it was on target. I remember like the next few days, like Lubavitch is all mobilized. We're all going to bring Mashiach.
So what? I guess what we like. Did you like have a feeling of like? Did I was talking like not only to Lubavitch but also to me like, and there's something that I have to do. Like, did you start getting involved in things, or it was like still?
So do you feel total was you can't, or like I'm waiting around like to see what's going to happen?
See what's going on.
Possibly waiting around to see what's going to happen. Because I don't know if at that point, it certainly wasn't like an active as far as Bar Poil and Lubavitch. Like I don't think I was doing Mitzrayim then or anything. So like, yeah,
it was still very much Rebbe in the sense of
it's not getting into what's Lubavitch doing. So my part was more bringing this to my chevra, right? So the Irai Mekaimai, so my Mekaimai was my chevra in Borough Park. So I was in Chassan Seifer then. I'm totally non-Chabad yeshiva. I even try to describe it. I guess then it was Chassan Seifer back then was like it was more Chassidus oriented yeshiva without any particular Chassidus. The Matzdorfer was the Rosh Yeshiva was the head. But it was like right leaning. Yeah, I guess so. More right leaning. Yeah. At that point it was coming up a lot. So I think at that point could be us. At that point already, the Rebbe being Mashiach was starting to become more of a thing. So then I was more educated in the concept of Mashiach is indeed a Basar V'dam. I don't remember the exact moment, but some point around then, it became clear to me that
right. So in that time, you still weren't yet in the Chabad group, in the sense of like other Chassidim, like you weren't going to like meetings and like whatever else was going on. You were very much just focused on the Rebbe. Whenever the Rebbe is Farbrengen, you would go there. Whenever the Rebbe is out, you would go there.
Right. It wasn't so much the Chassidus Farbrengens and the things the 770. Right. I don't know if I'd go to 770 for some event without the Rebbe.
Right.
I mean, over Shabbos things would happen.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't think at that point, at the point of Chavches Nisan.
I guess, how did things progress from there? The next.
I remember a tape came out from Rabbi Shalom Beck Halmason, the Shliach in Cincinnati, I believe, called a tape, Mashiach, is he here? I think that was the first tape that he pushed go through the Rambam. And Taka, again, that was so coming out of our head. Yeah, but Melech, Hagi B'Tayra, Cheskas Vada is already Cheskas Scholas Vada, blah, blah, blah. No, which are not, these are good conversations to have, obviously, which we're having.
Right. But this was in the beginning.
This is OG, like, okay, this is a lot, right. No one, Melech HaMashiach, like, again, if I didn't learn, I wasn't learning Rambam at that point, I don't think, not in an Aleph. For example, I don't think I was learning Rambam then yet. I wonder maybe I started around there, but I don't think I was. Maybe just on Aleph I started. I forgot, but not Mem Tessa, no, I showed it not Linfree Proc Rambam. So it's this is halacha. Yamid Melech Beis David
Talks about it.
Tak Yamid Melech or Yamid talking a leader Beis David Tak, and he's going through Beis David and Hagi B'Tayra. He's a mitzvah. Yachzik Bitka Tak, like wow Tak.
The Yilcham Chamas Hashem, the one that's always.
And it's like
taking responsibility and fighting for
it's becoming crystal clear. Then we also had the Gulf War then. So then the Gulf War, right? This was
Shemaini.
I guess this was before. Right, again a little bit.
Right,
could be ready before. Could be before already. There was a big storm already. Again, I'm not sure already then. Another Megillas Mangalaschem and the whole war. Oh yeah, the whole thing with the Scots Taka and the Rebbe Taka even just Rab Gerep was proven correct. Then not to touch your beard, and you don't need the Scott, you don't need the gas masks, and there were 39 Scott attacks. Taka, this was all coming together, and then this Mashiach talk with the Rebbe. So at that point already started solidifying, that
that was the man. This is what's going on.
This is
Mashiach is
that this
much
is
more at the forefront.
This is Mashiach. This is real. So then when we progress from there, so a pivotal night, we're coming up to the anniversary of that night, was Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin and Beis. I think in this vis-a-vis the whole Rebbe Mashiach.
Yud Aleph Nisan and Beis?
Yud Aleph Nisan Nun Beis.
Nun Beis, okay.
Nun Beis. So this is...
Already after Chazan Adar.
Right, after Chazan Adar. That's a... Talk about that separate thing, whatever. I was in also not in the Lubavitch yeshiva. Interestingly, when I went to... I told the Rebbe, I have a video of this actually. I went to learn yeshiva Geulah Montreal by a yeshiva named Ramat Weinberg, all of a shalom. Not a big chassid of the Rebbe at the time. Now I'm sure, but at the time, not at all a chassid of the Rebbe. And in his earlier years, he was quite. There was some fair amount of asnagdus. It was known as. It seems mellowed out a bit as he got older, to the point where. My father told him that unmistakable Lubavitch would be okay if sometimes I go, and he was like okay with it, which was a big anyone who hears that a Matal was okay with that. The Lechatchila was like wow.
So you went to the Rebbe?
Told the Rebbe.
They told the Rebbe that I'm going to learn in Montreal without specifying which yeshiva in Montreal. So I'm going to learn in Montreal. So. I got my dollars. I don't think I had much interaction. It was more, bracha v'tzlacha, I think this following is the longest interaction I had by dollars. The Rebbe gave me another dollars. Also opened up tzedakah in Montreal. So Zayin Achasad Yerushalayim in London. So that was. We'll wait for that to be before you one day. It's partially that was like
the sure to live forever.
Well. That's the plan, Leilavad. That's the plan.
So you have listen.
The Montreal Chavzayin Oder. So someone comes in. The Rebbe, someone else was a shtickle about it. The Rebbe had a sickle stroke. It was not believable. like the Rebbe doesn't get sick. Also at that point I wasn't aware of the various things the Rebbe was going through and was for this and that. But
So
that the Rebbe should have a strong. It was.
The Rebbe was superhuman. He was the Rebbe.
No, even though the Rebbe wouldn't be, let's say, Bagashna's perfect health, everything still went on. 3 tefillos a day, dollars, contrason, there was never.
You didn't know what happened in the Chassidus. You knew the seder of the
correct.
What was going on then?
Correct. There was no.
All 3 tefillos a day was a massive chiddush.
When there was no Farbrengen, when I found my Shabbos, so it showed that I was going to come to the Farbrengen. It can't be Shabbos without the Farbrengen.
How can I?
And then Sunday there was no dollars. The world fell apart. Like it was a very.
So what happened off Nissen?
Yud Aleph Nissen, I went talk with Simcha to with my father to talk to Chassidus Farbrengen because so 2 things. So Label Groner all of a sudden gave a speech there. So he was talking a lot about questions that Rebbe was getting. He'd been a gay was Husay of Mashiach.
So he was the one. He was the go-between.
He was the go-between, and there was clear. So they had Varim. It was clear that the Rebbe questions that should be Isaac the Rebbe being talking about the Rebbe. I think was the Tur Melech HaMashiach. And the Rebbe was masking. The Rebbe shook his head yes to this and no to that. I forgot the details. But Dein had Dvarim, the Rebbe was clearly being masking. No one that the Rebbe was being masking. And even the fact that it was being spoken about publicly by no less an authority than Label Groner, who's, as far as we knew, again, at that point didn't know the intricate politics with Label and this one and that one. But Groner, whatever. And there was clear talk of the Rebbe, of Sai among Chassidim and among respected Chassidim, openly, about the Rebbe being Mashiach, and the Rebbe himself answering to that effect. So that was one thing. Then they gave out the first Tzaddik L'Melech, series of Tzaddik L'Melech. So thank you to those who made it. I think it was Lezer Zaklokowski and such.
Which was a compendium of
So part was Shar Mashiach. Shar Mashiach Geulah was put together all the sichos of the Aleph and Beis, which I've heard. So I would hear a piece here, a piece there. I never really sat down and saw it al Seder, exactly Muga, exactly what the Rebbe said. I would hear Chazar to the Farbrengens, right? And Taka every week after Rabbi's shiurim. So the Chevra would gather around and sometimes Yoel would talk about it himself, but even then when Yoel would leave, like standing onto the 46th Street, 15th, 16th, after like standing, like usually the share ended 11:30, so standing like outside on the sidewalk.
16th and 46th, that's Borough Park.
Sometimes Yoel before he got in the car would sit and talk, and I can't talk with Yoel. And then
I can do this there.
And then
at the outside.
Then we'd sit and discuss, and the whole. I remember Novin Gizman Galaska and guy was playing the Scotch. All these different things. Like it was like what the Rebbe. It was definitely a feeling that that this is it. But I'll call upon him. I remember I was sitting in my bed, going through it, and I couldn't put it down. I remember like reading, for example, I think it was Vayeda when I got to that. Later, Kametzias to Mashiach, Alagamis Kalos to Mashiach. I'm like. The Rebbe is saying point blank, number one, that this is it. We are the Doira Geulah. Like I'm going, like I went to all the MBD songs, like
it's gonna happen,
and I'm going to see it like in short order, and that the Rebbe is clearly referring to himself, kind of declaring himself Mashiach, saying the Seder Einu is Mashiach. Miyad, if you say that Kirva Aleinu, like Miyad Mamish Kol Rashatei. It was like wow. I remember like wondering, like not wanting to go to sleep. Maybe I'm going to miss it. Maybe Mashiach will come. Like should I wait up for this Geulah? Should I go to sleep? Or Negelas right away? Go to mikveh. It was like what, this is it. Like it was like well, yeah. It was definitely a big turning point. Dalfness and then days. Again, looking at the seiches, but limit to learning the Geulah Mashiach, learning the frat.
That's this week the
yeah. So to do again to both the raid by the Chassidim. Including, and could be other those who spoke then. Could be not spoke. Label stands out in my mind as someone who clearly, someone authoritative. In other words, in my mind, not my father's mind, also, like it doesn't get more authoritative than Label Groner. He's the Rebbe's literally the Rebbe's right hand man. Literally, Gashmius is the Rebbe's right hand man. Like whenever we saw and he's talking this way, which is interesting. Later on, you see the final point. He's saying this, but that wasn't the point. And the point is the concept, the idea. and then the Sichos, and then I was, and then various other started coming out from Revolt, Moshiach, and this and that. So, started much more crystallizing and more explaining this idea. So that was Nun Beis, and then came Nun Gimel.
Okay, so let's talk about the Geulah.
Yes,
כדי כך המדב גולהוב מהדר עם זול מחי זין ישי המלך